The mecha genre can be charitably called male-dominated, and it's not particularly often that women pilots get their time in the spotlight. Piloting robots seems to be a man's job, if you believe what the shows say. Even now in our more enlightened age, there just aren't a whole lot of noteworthy lady pilots. And this is made even more frustrating by the fact that lady pilots have been around literally just as long as the male ones. When Mazinger Z debuted, it featured Koji Kabuto as the pilot of the lead robot, piloting it like it was a jet fighter or a car. At the same time, he was joined in the cockpit by one Sayaka Yumi. She had her own robot, a much better handle on how to maneuver it, and a somewhat nasty attitude to the rude and self-important Koji. She found herself running out to try and fight the mechanical monsters of Dr. Hell before Koji even gets his lazy butt into his machine. And it usually ends up working out very, very badly. Sadly, her machine, Aphrodite A, just doesn't have the stuff to go toe-to-toe with a bunch of war machines. Her robot was originally designed for mining operations, so it's not a surprise that she doesn't have a whole lot in the way of offensive capabilities. The machine got wrecked so regularly that they finally just scrapped it and gave her a new one, Diana A. It looked a lot more like a Lady Mazinger, but it still got the short end of the stick pretty regularly. Sadly, this would come to define Sayaka's role in the series to come. She was regularly a more reliable and sensible pilot than Koji, but her machines were never nearly in the class that Mazinger and his successors were. This is more to do with the fact that Koji was the main character than any pervading sexism at the time, but it was 1972. Sayaka herself was somewhat of an anomaly at the time as well, as she was not particularly feminine, and while she harbored a huge crush on Koji, his brash, headstrong attitude was usually a source of contention between him and his lady counterpart. For her part, in spite of being a good student and a careful pilot, she was also just as strong-willed as Koji, which earned her the unfortunate moniker of tomboy. Some might call her the first tsundere, I just call her a well-designed character. But in spite of all their clashing, they always did seem to pull it together and take out the baddie in the end. Her hot temper and independent nature very much stood out in a crowd of female characters who had been relegated primarily to hand-wringing and getting captured. However, her unfortunate inability to get very much accomplished, in spite of being the smarter, better pilot of the two, did not do her any favors, and by the halfway point in the series, she'd gone from a form-fitting but very covering jumpsuit to a pilot costume that had a mini-skirt. That fairly well clinched the deal as to what her role was supposed to be, and later Mazinger adaptations would put her into the same sort of situations as you'd expect from a doofy fan service character. Making matters worse is that most adaptations would pull more from the manga version of Sayaka, who was a lot less tomboyish. Still, at the end of the day, Sayaka's character remains mostly the same across the adaptations, with only slight tweaks and alterations in her levels of hot-bloodedness and how much she gets to wear. In spite of all that, Sayaka remains the first lady of Mecha, and the first female character to pilot a giant robot. She could roll with the big boys no problem and look good doing it, if only she had a machine that could handle it. So why does no one know about her? Tranzor Z was a planned adaptation of Mazinger Z that never really made it into widespread syndication, and even then her name was changed to Jessica. Aside from that, Mazinger Z only made it to American shores in recent years, starting with Mazin Kaiser in the early 2000s, and then more recently the original series in 2013. So in spite of being the first lady of Mecha, she's still not gotten much in the way of love over in the West. Luckily, with its re-release, maybe now she'll get the respect she deserves, and someone, please, get her something better than that clunker.
空にそびえる黒金の城スーパーロボットマジンガー Z